Picture yourself drifting through the corridors of a forgotten temple, where shadows dance against stone walls carved with symbols that predate recorded history. The air is thick with incense and mystery, and somewhere in the distance, you hear the faint whisper of ancient secrets waiting to be unveiled. Tonight, we venture into one of the most extraordinary and hidden chapters of human history, a tale that stretches from the dusty archives of medieval monasteries to the star-filled void of space itself. What if everything you thought you knew about the Knights Templar was merely the surface of something far more profound? What if their legendary wealth, their mysterious rituals, and their sudden violent suppression were all connected to an alliance so shocking it would redefine our understanding of civilization itself? And what if that alliance wasn't with earthly powers, but with beings from beyond our world? You've heard fragments before. The Templars, those warrior monks of the Holy Land, defenders of pilgrims, founders of banking, keepers of secrets. But beneath the familiar narrative lies something older, stranger, and infinitely more dangerous. A connection that reaches back not just centuries, but millennia. A partnership forged in the shadows between medieval knights and ancient visitors who have walked among us since the dawn of time. This isn't just another tale of medieval mystery. This is a revelation that bridges the gap between our earthly history and the cosmic forces that have shaped human destiny from the very beginning. It's a story about power, knowledge, and the price of forbidden wisdom. And it begins, as all great mysteries do, with a question that echoes through the halls of time. The year was 1119. 9 French knights, led by Hugh de Payens, approached King Baldwin II of Jerusalem with a proposal that would forever alter the course of history. Officially, they sought to protect Christian pilgrims traveling the dangerous roads to the Holy Land. But from the very beginning, something felt different about this particular order. Why only 9 men for such a monumental task? Why did they choose to establish their headquarters not in a fortress or monastery, but beneath the ruins of Solomon's temple itself? For nearly a decade, these mysterious knights lived in the underground chambers of Temple Mount, ostensibly guarding pilgrims but spending most of their time digging. Contemporary accounts speak of constant excavation, of tunnels extending deep into the bedrock, of discoveries that were never shared with the outside world. What were they searching for in those ancient depths? The official chronicles remain silent, but whispers from that time speak of artifacts unlike anything seen before. Objects that seem to pulse with their own inner light. The transformation that followed was unprecedented. Within decades, the Knights Templar had evolved from a small band of warrior monks into the most powerful organization in Christendom. Their wealth became legendary, their influence stretched across continents, and their knowledge seemed to encompass secrets that no earthly education could provide. They built cathedrals using architectural principles that wouldn't be rediscovered for centuries. They possessed maps of lands that hadn't yet been officially explored. They demonstrated an understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and engineering that defied the limitations of their age. But here's where the story takes a turn into territory that orthodox historians refuse to explore. The Templars weren't just lucky or clever, they had help. And that help came from beings who had been quietly influencing human civilization since its earliest days. The Anunnaki. In Sumerian texts, they were described as those who came from heaven to earth. Ancient tablets speak of beings who descended from the stars, who possessed technology that seemed like magic to primitive humans, who shared knowledge that accelerated human development in ways that still puzzle archaeologists today. These weren't gods in the mythological sense, but flesh and blood entities from another world, visitors who had been watching, guiding, and occasionally intervening in human affairs for thousands of years. By the time the Templars began their excavations beneath Temple Mount, the Anunnaki had long since retreated from open contact with humanity. But they hadn't disappeared entirely. They had simply become more selective about their partnerships, more careful about revealing themselves. And in the Knights Templar, they found the perfect allies. Consider the evidence that mainstream history has ignored or dismissed. The Templars' sudden mastery of advanced banking systems that wouldn't be fully understood until the modern era. Their ability to coordinate complex operations across vast distances with a precision that shouldn't have been possible given medieval communication limitations. Their construction techniques that incorporated knowledge of sacred geometry, acoustics, and electromagnetic properties that wouldn't be formally recognized by science for centuries. Most telling of all were their symbols and rituals, many of which bore striking similarities to iconography found in ancient Mesopotamian sites associated with Anunnaki presence. The double-headed eagle, the serpent wrapped around a staff, the peculiar geometric patterns that appeared in their architecture, all echoed motifs that predated Christianity by millennia and could be traced back to the earliest human civilizations. The alliance wasn't one-sided. While the Anunnaki provided knowledge and guidance, the Templars offered something equally valuable in return: a network of initiated humans who could serve as guardians and implementers of a long-term plan. The Templars became the earthly agents of beings who thought in terms of centuries rather than decades, who understood that true power lay not in conquest, but in the patient cultivation of influence across generations. This partnership explains mysteries that have puzzled historians for centuries. How did a relatively small order of knights accumulate such vast wealth so quickly? How did they develop such sophisticated organizational structures? How did they manage to operate with such independence from both church and state authorities? The answer lies in the knowledge and resources provided by their otherworldly benefactors. But the Anunnaki were careful. They revealed only what was necessary, shared only enough knowledge to achieve their objectives without risking exposure. The Templars themselves may not have fully understood the true nature of their allies. To them, these beings might have appeared as angels, as advanced humans from a lost civilization, or as emanations of divine wisdom. The truth was kept hidden within the highest circles of the order, protected by layers of initiation and oath-bound secrecy. This careful balance of revelation and concealment created a unique dynamic. The Templars wielded power and knowledge that seemed almost supernatural to their contemporaries. Yet they remained bound by human limitations and earthly concerns. They were simultaneously the most advanced organization of their age and the unwitting servants of an agenda that stretched far beyond their mortal comprehension. And as their power grew, so did the attention they attracted from forces that would eventually lead to their dramatic downfall. A downfall that was itself part of a larger cosmic game being played out across the centuries. The deeper you venture into the Templar mystery, the more the conventional narrative begins to crumble, like ancient parchment exposed to light. Because what happened next wasn't just the rise of a military order, it was the emergence of something unprecedented in human history. A hybrid organization that operated simultaneously in the material world and in dimensions that most humans couldn't even perceive. By 1150, the Templars had established a network that spanned from Scotland to the Holy Land. But their true centers of power weren't the obvious fortresses and preceptories marked on medieval maps. Hidden within their legitimate operations were facilities that served a far different purpose. Underground chambers connected by tunnels that followed ley lines older than Rome. Laboratories disguised as scriptoriums where monks copied texts in languages that predated Latin by millennia. And communication systems that allowed for instantaneous contact across continents, a feat that wouldn't be officially possible until the invention of the telegraph. The Anunnaki had chosen their human partners well. The Templars possessed the perfect combination of military discipline, spiritual dedication, and institutional secrecy necessary to serve as earthly custodians of otherworldly knowledge. But more than that, they demonstrated something that the ancient visitors had rarely encountered in their long history of human contact: the ability to adapt and evolve while maintaining absolute loyalty to their cosmic benefactors. This evolution manifested in ways that contemporary observers found both miraculous and disturbing. Templar Knights began to display abilities that seemed to transcend normal human limitations. They could navigate by stars that weren't visible to others. They possessed an uncanny ability to predict weather patterns, enemy movements, and natural disasters. Some accounts, dismissed by historians as medieval superstition, describe Templars who could communicate without speaking, who seemed to age more slowly than their contemporaries, who demonstrated physical strength and endurance that bordered on the superhuman. These weren't magical powers in the fantasy sense, but the results of Anunnaki biotechnology that worked at levels too subtle for medieval understanding to grasp. Genetic modifications that enhanced cognitive function and physical capabilities. Neural implants that allowed for direct communication with advanced systems. Longevity treatments that extended lifespans without creating obvious visible changes. The Templars had become something new, a bridge species that retained their essential humanity while incorporating elements that belonged to a more advanced evolutionary stage. But the Anunnaki weren't interested in creating superhumans for their own sake. They had a specific agenda, one that required their human allies to operate within very precise parameters. The knowledge they shared came with restrictions, conditions that the Templars accepted without fully understanding their implications. Certain technologies were forbidden. Specific information was to be revealed only at designated times. And above all, the existence of the Alliance itself was to remain hidden from the broader human population. This created a fascinating paradox within the Templar organization. At the highest levels, a small group of initiates worked directly with their otherworldly mentors, managing resources and implementing strategies that spanned generations. Below them, layers of knights and sergeants carried out orders without knowing their ultimate purpose. And at the base of the hierarchy, ordinary members served the order, believing they were simply defending Christianity against Muslim forces. The compartmentalization was so complete that even today, scholars studying Templar documents find evidence of multiple organizations operating under the same name. The public Templars, who fought in the Crusades and managed pilgrims. The financial Templars, who pioneered international banking. The esoteric Templars, who preserved ancient knowledge and conducted mysterious rituals. And at the very center, the Shadow Templars, who maintained contact with beings that officially didn't exist. This multi-layered structure served the Anunnaki perfectly. They could advance their long-term objectives while remaining invisible to human authorities who might oppose their influence. They could test new technologies and social systems on a limited scale before implementing them more broadly. And they could maintain their partnership with humanity while avoiding the catastrophic cultural disruption that open contact would inevitably create. The wealth that made the Templars legendary wasn't just the result of clever banking or successful military campaigns. It flowed from access to resources that existed outside normal economic systems. Rare minerals extracted from locations that hadn't been officially discovered. Technological innovations that generated massive profits while their true origins remained hidden. And most importantly, investment strategies based on knowledge of future events that allowed the order to position itself advantageously decades in advance. But perhaps the most significant gift the Anunnaki provided wasn't material wealth or advanced technology. It was perspective, an understanding of human history and potential that stretched far beyond what any earthly education could provide. The Templars began to see themselves not just as knights serving God and King, but as guardians of humanity's evolutionary future. They understood that their actions in the 12th and 13th centuries would have consequences that rippled across millennia. This cosmic perspective fundamentally altered how the order operated. They made decisions based not on immediate gain, but on long-term outcomes that wouldn't be apparent for generations. They preserved knowledge, not for their own use, but for future humans who would need it at precisely the right moment. They established networks and institutions designed to survive the collapse of governments, religions, and entire civilizations. And they began to prepare for something that their Anunnaki allies had foreseen. A time of great transition when humanity would face challenges that would determine the future of the species itself. So here we stand at the threshold of understanding, peering through the mists of history, at a truth that challenges everything we thought we knew about our past and our place in the cosmos. The Knights Templar, those enigmatic warrior monks who have captivated imaginations for centuries, were never just guardians of pilgrims or pioneers of banking. They were something far more extraordinary, the chosen intermediaries between humanity and ancient visitors who have shaped our destiny from the shadows of time. Their sudden rise to power, their mysterious knowledge, their inexplicable wealth, all of it makes sense when viewed through this hidden lens. The Anunnaki didn't abandon Earth after the fall of ancient civilizations. They simply learned to work more subtly, more carefully, selecting human partners who could serve their long-term vision while remaining invisible to those who would oppose such an alliance. The destruction of the Templars in 1307 wasn't just political opportunism or religious persecution. It was the severing of a connection that had grown too visible, too powerful, too dangerous for the cosmic balance that the Anunnaki sought to maintain. But connections forged in starlight and sealed with otherworldly knowledge don't simply disappear. They transform, evolve, and continue in forms that history rarely recognizes. As you drift towards sleep tonight, carried by the rhythm of this ancient tale, remember that the mysteries surrounding us are deeper than we imagine. The Templars may be gone, but their legacy endures in ways that stretch far beyond the pages of history books. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space and time, those who guided them continue their patient watch over humanity's unfolding destiny. Rest well, knowing that the greatest secrets are often hidden in plain sight, waiting for those brave enough to look beyond the surface of accepted truth.